Welcome to Faithology Today.
Where we're building faith and destroying doubt. I'm Mark Nathaniel Skelton, and we have
Day Antoinette Skelton.
All right, my lovely wife, and we back.
We back.
Black and Christian. I asked my wife to join these talks, given the subject, because I thought it would be really important to have conversation around this topic and what's going on.
I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Absolutely. I'm excited too, because what I believe this conversation is going to do, and as we continue this and develop this conversation and this talk, is that it will help us reimagine ourselves. I think it'll help reintroduce the Christianity and also revitalize our faith.
That is so neat. It's so needed right now.
Absolutely.
It's so needed right now during this time with all the stuff that's going on with us.
Right.
You know.
That's where I was going with it. I think this is a conversation within the Black community that's needed.
It would be a disservice not to have it.
Absolutely. And so what we're going to do is, earlier, just a little background, like I put something out there on social media, just been doing some reading, doing some digging, and it has to do with Africa and Christianity and slavery and all these controversial things, and just our walk with Christ and Jesus and how it all plays a role. So me as an apologist, I think we have a duty to kind of speak to things that help defend the faith.
Yeah.
And so let's go ahead and get into some of the questions of what prompted and inspired this conversation. So, for instance, one of them are, have you heard the statement that Christianity is a white man's religion, or Christianity is a slavery religion? Have you heard that?
Heard it.
Yeah.
Talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Shut it down.
Right. Right. It's one of those, like, I wonder where that's coming from. I think we're gonna address that. We're gonna talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that couldn't be any further from the truth. It couldn't be any further from the truth. And what's deeper is that Christianity and Africa are like super intimately connected, especially during the first century, like right after the church, right after the resurrection. And the question is, why isn't this talked about? Why is this ignored in the Western world, in Africa, with scholars, Black nationalists, anybody? It's like it's not fully known. And I think this is that resurrection right now, this information right now. And we're all taking part in this kind of phoenix, this idea that Africa was this great zenith of knowledge for Christianity, and it went underneath, and now I think it's rising back up again.
It's being misrepresented.
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And you know, I think with this, I think it's super important to speak to some of the obvious, in that this isn't a time where we're going to bash Caucasians or whites.
It's
or
not even
Europeans.
about that. It's not even about that.
It's not about that, okay? Because, color doesn't save, but truth does.
Yeah.
Jesus said, know the truth, and the truth is what makes you free. And there's verses in Revelations about how God has redeemed all people from all kindred and tongues and nations. So that's how we feel about that.
Yeah.
This is just more of a housekeeping conversation amongst African Americans that needs to be.
Yo, I found this out.
Yeah.
I want
to share it with you. Yeah. So that's a little disclaimer. But so I guess the three main points that we're going to discuss is the misconception that kind of prompted that question I asked.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Why? Where are these falsehoods coming from?
Yeah.
The second piece of this is a historical investigation. Like, what are some of the facts? What are some of the line of sources that speak and support my idea and are the thesis?
You have to have those.
Yes. What is supporting this notion that Africa had a vital role in Christianity? And then the third is just the idea of just rediscovering the Christian faith. Like, what are the implications of this conversation? Where can we go with this? Right. And so, like, even in school, I'm learning the thesis. What is the main point of this talk? What are we talking about? The point that we're making is, and proposing, is Christianity was practiced in Africa before slavery, and that African thought and African mind had a major influence on the formation of the Christian faith and essentially the world. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay.
All right.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Let's do this. So let's talk about the first point: the misconceptions, the falsehoods, and assumptions. There's this idea that, and maybe you could speak to it a little bit, that Europe introduced Christianity to Africa.
Yeah, I absolutely see why that is what's said.
Okay.
Absolutely, because we were taken from our homeland, brought here, and the thought is that this religion was put onto us.
Okay.
Just like things are put in the media, things are made to look a certain way, or it's all one-sided.
Okay.
So I can definitely see why that would be something that was be said.
Absolutely, and when I dug into this, and all this is prompting you to do your research too. But what I'm learning is that actually the flow of intellect wasn't from Europe to Africa, it was more the other way around.
And that was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was.
For me, it was just like, wow, wow.
And from Africa to Europe. And I guess when I'm referring to Europe, I'm referring to kind of like, you remember social studies class where you kind of start off with the monarchs, and you're like 470 AD, like 400 years after Christ, 70, all that.
And the only history, because in social studies, it seems like the only history that I learned about our people was slavery.
Okay. Right.
And Black History Month.
Right.
You
Right.
You really don't hear anything like this.
So and some of the reasons, I guess some of the answers to this, what I'm learning is there's a number of things that contributed to this idea. And you kind of spoke to it earlier, like imagery.
Yeah.
I would venture to say a lot of, and when we say that, we're talking about paintings, we're talking about pop culture.
It's ridiculous.
We're talking about media production, all the, like, televisions, movies, right? And I would also like to say whether these things were done intentionally or unintentionally, currently or modern day, that's not the discussion here.
Right.
We're just making observations, no necessary interpretations. It's
exactly.
like, maybe that's a reason that contributes to why we think this way. Another one is colonialism and imperialism. Have you heard of that?
No, what's
That's
that?
the idea of just colonization.
Okay.
Typically, Europe colonized a lot of countries, and typically when colonization happens, they religion is integrated, economics, cultural practices are integrated into the indigenous people.
Okay.
So it could be another reason why we feel this way and think this way. And then missionary organizations. I find it ironic that there's a lot of missionary organizations from the West that go to Africa.
They always go to Africa.
Haven't you think about that?
Yeah.
You go to
why?
It's kind of that's why I find it so ironic when you further the study.
Okay.
Because it really kind of started in Africa.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that's another thing is just, and I'll combine these together, that Christianity is it's a white man's religion, and it was imposed upon us.
Right.
And when I would say to us, I'm referring to African Americans in the United States of America.
Okay.
And you've heard that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So keeping it professional, that is a stretch.
Okay.
This idea that it's a white man's religion, it was imposed upon us during slavery. Now, you got to give credit where credit is due, because Europe has done a great job, great effort in popularizing Christianity throughout the centuries. Right? Kudos. But, so you can't let one bad apple spoil the bunch. But I think the populace has to begin to parse out when Christianity is used deceitfully versus when it's used in the right form. Right? Because, of course, there were Christians, I put that in quote, slave owners and slave traders.
But they're not all bad. You know, it's just in any group of people, any demographic,
right.
You have your these and you have your those. You know, you don't want to bunch and round everybody up into the same
cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what I'm saying. Even during, I find it so funny that, like, when people say there's been Christian slave owners and traders, they never mention the Christian abolitionists and the freedom fighters that fought for the right. So it's just like, I think you just got to start using wiser judgment as to who represents who and who's doing what.
Yeah. You can't go in with this jaded mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going in against this.
Right.
You know, because automatically you're not going to look for the good in it. You're going in with bad. You're expecting bad. You retain bad, and then it's all bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need to go in open-minded, that you may be wrong.
Right.
You know?
Right. And with that, I think one person can't speak for the whole Christian faith, or you know. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
Exactly.
And I think one last point on this too is this idea of like, what was our religion before we came over here? I think that comes up.
That has always been what I've thought and wondered and hoped to learn is, you know, who were we before this? And this has helped me a lot.
Okay.
With that.
And I think one of the narratives is that, you know, African Americans were like predominantly Islamic, or practiced that faith before coming over. But I think when you dig into it a little more,
or we're spiritual.
Yeah. But you know, before, like I said before too, you have to go through one.
Yeah.
And Islam, when you do the research, it came into North Africa by Muslim Arabs around 7th century AD. So it's like maybe 700 years after Christ was born, or 600 years rather. And it's through trading and missionaries. But the thing that I'm trying to present is that before that, so the periods that I'm referring to is like right on top of the early church, right when Christ ascended. Like from that time period to about 300, 400 BC was thick with African influence that basically had the mantle. Okay, and it also makes sense that it even more like there was a Jewish revolt that took place that Christ predicted in Matthew, and some of those Christians or Jews came into northern Africa too.
I'm learning.
Yeah,
I'm
so
learning right now.
Of course, they're going to bring their religion and their practices with them during that time.
Of course.
Right? So I think it's difficult to just make that assertion, and I think it's ill-informed at the end of the day.
Right.
I just think it's ill-informed. I think it may be emotionally charged, and I don't believe there's too much historical facts, scholar facts, to back that statement up.
Okay.
Which kind of leads us into the next point of some historical evidences.
Yeah.
So let's turn our attention to that.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with some of the historical investigation.
This is what I've been waiting for.
Absolutely, and so some of the evidences that support this position.
Yes.
And so we're just going to be talking about the people, places, and things that help this statement that Africa had an integral role in Christianity.
Okay.
And well, of course, we're going to launch from the Bible. So we got biblical, because this is a historical document. The Bible is a historical document.
And actually, it proves itself.
It proves itself. And so, first of all, let's just start with Africa being the cradle of civilization. This is where Adam was formed.
The motherland.
The motherland. There's an interesting article by National Geographic. It says modern humans came out of Africa. It's from anthropologists.
Modern humans.
The definitive study says this. It's James Owen. We are solely children of Africa. It's their opening line in this article.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So what supports that? If you notice in Genesis 2, 10 through 14, some rivers are named.
And they're in Africa.
Okay. So that's just case in point. One's in Ethiopia.
Come on.
That's Africa.
Now, my question is.
Okay.
If the Bible was written by people to deceive us.
Wait, we're gonna get to that. Okay. Hold that point.
Wait.
Yes. Okay.
That's
where you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. That's a good point. And I want to raise up. This is a great book. It's How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind. Dr. Thomas Oden. Okay. This is, if you want to continue your study on this. Actually, it happens to be a white professor.
Okay.
Very deep book. I would get it on your wish list. And he actually kind of informs us that we need to be having these talks. He feels like it shouldn't come from like white scholars. It should come from people within the black community speaking with one of them.
And we need to know this. I feel like it's not being talked about because it's not known, and it's not being. We just don't know.
Exactly.
We don't know.
And he says this is just page 14, cut Africa out of the Bible and Christian memory, and you have misplaced many pivotal scenes of salvation history.
Yes.
It is the story of the children of Abraham in Africa, Joseph in Africa, Moses in Africa, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus in Africa.
Wow.
Man, when you stop and think
and
about
that's
the... So, these things they're obvious, but for some reason we just seem to not be able to acknowledge it. So this is a verse I want to give you. There's tons of them. Like I said, we'll flesh it out more in the following weeks, but there's just one verse is in Acts 13, verse 1. Okay? And it's pretty telling when you hear the conversation that there was no Christians before slavery. Okay? You take them here and it reads, now there was in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simon that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. So Niger,
right?
There's two things there. Niger can be interpreted as black man, and Niger happens to be a country
in Africa.
Okay. So also there's Cyrene. It says Lucius of Cyrene. Cyrene happens to be in Africa. Okay. So that was on the northern coast there. Okay. So basically, and also I think it's pretty interesting. The man that carried the cross for Christ was from Cyrene, Simon of Cyrene. This is Mark 15:21, Matthew 27:32. Okay. We haven't even talked about the Ethiopian eunuch, Acts 8. The
Queen Sheba.
Come on, the Queen of Sheba. Like we're not even you're jumping to the Old Testament now. We have, you get what I'm saying? Like we have the people that were represented at Pentecost.
Right.
Apollo of Alexandria, all these. Okay. So to your point, what you were saying earlier, those that say that the Bible is mistranslated, you should be very careful. Yeah. Because when you're making that statement, you're basically putting these questions these facts into question. Okay. It wouldn't make too much sense to keep these areas in there. Like, what was mistranslated? Then that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't understand that. And you know, I want to say this too. Egypt is in Africa. And just like you have north, south, east, and west, Egypt is a part of it.
Yes.
So some of us probably did come from Egypt, you know, but that's not the main thing, and that's it. Cut everything else out.
Right. Egypt. And actually, it's funny. Speaking of Egypt, the B of this point of some of the evidence is the Alexandrian Library. Okay, this is what gets the nerd out of me here. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of that? Okay.
No.
So this library. So actually, the writer of the Gospel of Mark, who was an apostolic witness. Okay, that means he saw the apostles. And he worked with them, and actually he received his information from Peter. Okay. All right, to write the Gospels. He moved to a place called Alexandria, okay, which was the epicenter. Okay, this is common knowledge, public domain. The epicenter of Christian thought. The epicenter. Okay.
Okay.
This was like the New York of America. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the place that
the Big Apple.
The Big Apple. Okay, this was the Big Apple of Christian thought in Africa during this time. Okay. Second to none. This library, hands down, one of the greatest libraries. It's even in the book Rise of Christianity. It's mentioned in there. And the thing I want to really highlight for us is that Alexandria was in Egypt, and Egypt was in Africa.
Come on.
Okay, and furthermore, the thing from this is it has an academic model for university. Okay, and I think this is a part that I think is very important to hear.
Right.
Did you know that Africa and Christian thought are responsible for the concept of university?
I didn't know that.
Do you know what I mean by that? What are you taking from that?
That we started schools.
Basically.
Schools, professors, knowledge.
Colleges, universities, higher education, all this. Why am I saying that? Because when you look at this, I encourage you. These were learning communities. When I say that Alexandria was the zenith, it was a learning community, the library. Other countries was coming to this place to learn.
But when you look him up,
saying. Features don't look like.
Right.
Okay,
right.
that's all I'm saying.
The imagery has been misinterpreted.
And so this idea of the university, basically philosophers, scientists, and I would like to note science and religion, the faith was connected. It was never this science, keep God out of it.
Right.
During this time, they was together.
Yes.
Okay, with the Christian faith. Writers, artists, educators, all of them were together at this place, and it was evidence of Christianity in Africa helped promote this idea and this institution, and it provided the archetype for European universities that are known today.
Wow.
That came from Africa.
Wow.
This is the greatness that's in our DNA.
Wow.
Man, that's rich right there.
That's a lot to chew on.
So basically, Africans, and you can learn even from this book, Africans were informing and instructing and educating Cappadocia, the Greco-Roman teachers, all the surrounding areas. Okay, so the great thinkers, this is where the great thinkers were from Africa during this time and were Africans. Okay, and this is just a few. This is where we're going to flesh out in the next following weeks is Clement of Alexandria, 150 to 215 AD. One of the greatest theologians of all time. Origen, born in 185, born in Alexandria. This is Africa. He operated schools of grammar. He had schools devoted to scientific theology and to the Word of God, devoted to fasting, praying, all these type of things.
Wow.
Augustine.
All I can say is wow. All I can say is wow.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Like,
that's why we have to pace ourselves with this. Tertullian, man. Augustine, the father of all Western Latin theology. Africa. They were African and operated in Africa. Okay.
This is what we need to be learning about on top of everything else. Black History Month, history, social studies, all that. These are the things that we need to be learning about to know who we are and where we've come from and what we're capable of.
Boom. And that's the last point I want to make with this. The importance of this is that these people are historical figures. Okay, they lived during the 1st, 2nd century, and they had a role because this is where the Christianity mantle was at during this time. Okay, they had the role in shaping the deity of Christ, the God in three persons, the putting down of Gnostic teachings. Okay, basically shaping Christianity to what it is today. That is amazing.
It's mind blowing.
It's mind blowing. And all you have to do is just do a simple search. It's in the domain. It's not hidden anywhere. Like, it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. It's everywhere. So I think that is enough to just kind of pique your interest. Right. Just give you enough to kind of look into yourself to let you. This isn't hidden history. It's really the Bible says that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Knowledge. And it's not like it's not there. I can't really fault anybody. Sometimes we got to look at ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we know this?
Right. Why aren't we searching? Why are we allowing this to be kept from us? And it's not being kept from us. It's just we're just not seeking it, and we don't want it. We don't want it to be. It's just like no, and it's like, don't deny what's rightfully yours.
Don't fight it. Yeah.
Right, don't fight it.
So this is cool. So we'll go to the last point of rediscovering the Christian faith, and then we'll kind of bring it home from there.
Okay.
All right, so I guess we'll end off with the idea of rediscovering the Christian faith.
Okay.
So I think this gives us new levels of understanding of the Christian faith.
I definitely have some new levels of understanding. Definitely.
The implications are far-reaching.
Okay.
And I think it's important, especially with everything going on right now in our community.
We need this. I just feel like this is so needed. For me, it's refreshing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be real. It's very refreshing for me, just in identity. It seals some things up for me, And it just makes me feel good.
It does feel good.
It just feels good.
And that goes right into this point that I'm like, even with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, everything, like all the social political tension and race, like it's good to know that we have a place in history.
Yes. Other than what's been put in front of us. And that's real. That does not need to be taken away from.
No.
That happened. It happened to us. That's real. But this is real too. And yes. I feel like it's been kind of swept under the rug.
Right.
And it's like, no, like...
No, yeah, pull the rug out. Like, yeah, expose. Like, that's what we're doing. That's where we're bringing it to light.
Right.
And that's even for me as a mental health provider. I wanted to highlight in Dr. Odin's book, he discusses the recovery of dignity.
That's good. That's good.
This idea that Africa lacks intellectual subtlety and substance.
Right.
It has a negative impact on our self-esteem.
Because another thing I've noticed too is that if you don't actually go to Africa or read about it or look into it, you would think that Africa is this nasty, torn down, poverty, stricken place, and it's actually very beautiful. I actually know people that are from there, and they speak of Africa highly. Like, what are you guys talking about? Africa is sweet. Home is sweet. I hear that, and it's like, you would think it was an awful place.
Absolutely. So, and that's where, Doctor, I don't know if you were Dr. John Henrik Clark, deep guy. So, but he says there's this historical schizophrenia when it comes to Africa for some reason, like this confusion of what their significance is. It's almost like we're out of touch reality.
Well, of course.
It's funny how, I don't know how or why. I mean, we've been kind of talking about it, but it's just
I think that's just what's been put out there. That's just the imagery. That's what has been, placed in front of us this is how it is. And like you said, if you don't step outside of that, if you don't want to know anything more or anything better about it, then you don't. Your mind is on what's been placed in front of you.
Absolutely. And I think this type of conversation helps ground us as who we are, because and we'll end on it. This is the conclusion. Like Dr. Ben Youssef, I don't know if you've heard of him, deep guy. He made the statement that just because a rabbit is born in an oven doesn't make them biscuits. Okay. In other words, they're still rabbits. They're still bunnies, right? Okay. And just because we're born in America as Black folks doesn't take away our heritage.
Exactly.
It doesn't take away what our greatness is and where we come from. And I think that's the basic. That's the thing I want to get across, if I haven't, is the reality that the majority of Blacks in America have ancestry in Africa.
Yes.
And which to me now it sounds like a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It's a heritage that's enriched that's Christian based, has intellectual astuteness, and it continues to influence the world. And so I hope that was a blessing to you as it was for me. If you want to continue,
I feel blessed.
I hope, that's all that what we're doing is sharing. We're showing love, sharing, defending the Christian faith, letting you know that
having the conversation
that this idea that Christianity is a slave, that's not true. And I really can't speak to the people that do say that.
And it probably could have been used against us because it was ours. So why not use their own stuff against them?
Right.
They fear this. This is what they believe in. So let's use this against them to get them to do what we want them to do anyway.
Right.
And I mean, I can see that. I can see that happening. But I also feel like there was good too.
What the devil meant for bad.
Right. What the devil meant for bad, God meant for good. And I feel like now that this is being known, it's being put out there, do your own research. Definitely don't just take and eat what we're giving you.
Right.
But consider it and do your own research for yourself, because it's liberating. It's
liberating, and just knowing, the Christian faith it's one of diversity.
Yeah.
Lord died for all man to have salvation. Jew or Gentile, bond or free, male or female, but we're all one in Christ Jesus.
Thank you.
But I also feel like it's real important to, if it is a religion of encouragement and empowerment, I think this is so fitting for where Black people are today.
Right now. We need this right now.
We need this rising. So I hope this is a blessing. Like I said, we're going to continue the conversation. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Over the next couple of talks, I want to get more into these actual biblical examples, more into who these great thinkers were back in the day, and just kind of flesh out this idea that Christianity and Africa were intimately connected during the first century, second century there.
Absolutely.
So I hope it was a blessing to you. As I always say, I hope it was a blessing to you as it was for me, and we'll catch you on the next go around. God bless. Peace.
Peace. Okay.
What do you think?
I think we did great, babe. Good job.
You thought it was good?
I'm so happy I could have been here and talked to you.